But they play a little more, like the style is different?
Well, so this game is 2,000, 4,000, and everyone started with 1,000,000. So that's 250 big blinds.
Yeah.
Whereas often if you go to a casino, people can buy in for 100 big blinds. And at 100 big blinds deep, doing something like limping under the gun, it's a little harder to work into your overall strategy. You can still do it and stuff, but
Won't be as often.
yeah, it's nice having this kind of structure and then having the ante. Basically, it gives everyone a chance to put some more interesting or kind of what I would call funny plays into their game. And even if it's not perfect, they can get away with it a bit. Oh, so this could be quite a big hand here. So Ivey raised. Patrik, I'm sure, will be raised. And I don't expect Ivey to fold. He has king-queen suited.
I never expect... I expect everything and nothing from him.
Ivey and Patrik have obviously played a ton of very big poker against each other over the years. But actually, the last few years, I don't think they've played too much.
In a game together? Ooh.
I'm sure they've played some, but I don't think it's been... you know, the three of us used to play against each other all the time. And the last few years, I don't think Ivey and Patrik have played very often. I haven't played with Patrik very much myself.
This is such like back in the day situation.
Okay, so this could be quite a big pot. You had given a spoiler about some fireworks. I wouldn't be shocked if it was this.
Oh no.
now you're ruining more.
No, because it hasn't been. We're 30 minutes delayed. I'm just teasing.
Okay, so
I'm not
now
ruining.
Patrik flop top set here. He has a lot of options here. I wouldn't be surprised if he checks. I wouldn't be surprised if he bets. And I don't expect Ivey to fold unless Patrik bets huge. Yeah, so Patrik bets only 40,000. Ivey's not going to fold here. I expect him usually to call and hope to hit on the turn, but sometimes he'll raise the flop here. And now if a 10 pulls off, there would have been a really big pot there.
Oh wow.
So now this is a little bit of a funny spot for Patrik, actually, because since he has two aces, there's not that much he can hope that Ivey has to be able to call him really big. There's one ace Ivey could have. Maybe Ivey has king-jack or something. Probably Ivey doesn't have a set of jacks or set of sevens, or he would raise the flop. And so this is a pretty interesting turn for Patrik to check if he wants. But it also makes sense for him to make another bet some of the time, especially with Patrik's history, that he a lot of times can put a lot of pressure on people. And if I was in Ivey's shoes here with king-queen, you know, I would be cranky and unhappy, and a bunch of the time I would end up folding, but I sometimes would also think back through all the hands that Patrik shows up with 8-9 or something here and call on the turn. And I think that's what Ivey's thinking through here. I expect him to fold, but I wouldn't be shocked if he calls.
It's so fascinating. There's no emotion on his face. It's just like from the beginning until the end, it's always the same face. It's just so crazy.
And this is a little bit of a, you know, a little unusual of a call, but not a big surprise. And now Patrik, I expect, will bet again.
If I were Patrik, I would be probably just like laughing right now, be so happy. I mean, this is just so much work just to stay, you know, serious like that.
Oh, I see you in the background over there, Tatiana, even though you're common.
I am multiplying. Wow.
So the same thing I had said earlier, how Patrik has two aces and Phil can only have one, that still applies. And that's, I think, part of why Patrik's betting so big here. He doesn't expect Phil to often have a hand that's just one pair, like an ace-10, king-queen, something like this. He's hoping that Phil has something like 2 pair or a set and is going to feel like he has to call. And Phil just quickly folds it there. Doesn't try to be heroic.
Seems like he wants to.
That is a big pot.
Bet fold.
This blind?
Do you think it's easier to play with chips or with the plaques? I feel like they're kind of
I
could be a
don't
little
really
clumsy.
like plaques that much.
No.
Yeah, I find them, they kind of make the game more awkward and stuff, and it
And it's harder to be cool when you throw in the.
yeah, it all just feels less splashy. I don't like it that much. For a TV game, it doesn't matter as much because you have the high rail thing, so it's already a little bit uncomfortable.
But I did hear that people love playing with them. I think they had them at the Million Buy-In in Vegas, because people are like, oh, it feels very James Bondy.
Yeah, I think that's why they do it. So I don't know if you noticed, there was Paul there was asking what the action was after a pot that was 400,000 when Patrik bet another 400,000 on the river. And the reason I'm pointing that out is like Paul actually can play quite good at poker, but he's a businessman who has quite a bit of money, and so people like that sometimes you'll see. For example, there had been a 30,000 pot where Jason Kuhn bet 8,000 and he was asking what the hand was, and yet then he was busy the next hand and missed a 400,000 pot where Patrik bet 400,000.
Shit's getting too weird for me. I'm out of there.
Okay, and Jason's confused because you have 2 people just calling, and so Jason's not used to playing games like this.
So that's
2 people just calling and not raising.
Juicy.
Did he say juicy?
Yeah. Paul said juicy, and I would expect he should raise here. He should make it 25,000 more or something like that. King Queen's a pretty good hand, and he's probably ahead of what everyone has unless they're trapping him.
160. 36,000.
And so here, Paul meant to say 36 and said 360.
Oh.
And this is the kind of thing that, basically, a table like this, you know that person's not angling. There's not really an angle there where they could be trying to do something tricky by saying 360. No one would ever raise to 360,000 when only 4 people called. And so in most normal cash games that I've played where there's not shady people, something like this, you would just let go.
Yeah. But in Vegas,
And that's
I
what
don't
everyone
know.
did. Yeah, sometimes if you're at a casino, someone will get called on that, but obviously it would leave a bad taste in
Yeah, of
anyone's
course.
mouth who did, because, that's not really in the spirit of the game. Especially as he's sitting there drinking Macallan, right? You don't want to show up to a game like that if you're going to get stuck putting in the 360. And
but
as a poker player, I think you often do want people like that playing, right? Someone who's relaxed. Sorry, what?
Oh no, I was just saying that I would hear that even when they're playing tournaments. Sometimes people are like, oh no, actually I meant this and I meant that, and it's like, it's really annoying.
Oh yeah, tournaments it can get quite funny because it's, everyone has the same rules, but then it can be funny where sometimes I've seen some of the really big, what we call VIPs, like the really big fish from Macau, get stuck in a spot where they clearly weren't angling, didn't mean anything wrong, but they didn't put the chips in right, and yet I've seen other people that did try to pull something a little funny, so it's a very hard thing to balance.
Yeah.
Oh wow, and so this should be a huge pot. We have Paul flopped a set of 9s and Elton flopped a set of 7s. Now there are 3 hearts on board, which could make the pot a little bit smaller, but I still expect it'll get very big.
Just to
And so
reconfirm.
Elton bets 40.
Bigger than flush, right? Of course.
And so Paul's making a joke here because when we play short deck, we for about the first few years it was played, everyone played the normal way that a full house beats a flush, and just lately, about the last 6 months or so, everyone started playing that a flush beats a full house because flushes are less common. So that's the joke Paul's making here.
My cut cannot be offsuit.
And then he's talking a lot before I'm guessing that he's going to raise. And yeah, he is with this set. And Elton's not going to be folding. Yeah, so Paul started this hand with 925,000. they're playing 2,000, 4,000, so that's what we call 230 big blinds, which is pretty deep stacked.
Yeah.
And a set's a very good hand, but there are 3 hearts on the board. So 230 big blinds with 3 people in the pot is a pretty big amount to get in the middle on a 3 flush board with middle set or bottom set, but I still expect that that'll end up happening a lot of time depending on what the turn is here. And that's partly because Paul and Elton both have a history. They both play big pots against each other. Sometimes they try to bluff each other.
I can't even speak English.
Yeah, and on this card it's a offsuit 3, so it's going to be very hard for Elton to fold here. I think just about whatever Paul bets, Elton's at a minimum calling and very often going to be shoving, because Paul only has about 800,000 left, and the pot's 326. So if Paul bets, say, 200,000, if I was in Elton's spot, I'd probably call, but I wouldn't be surprised if he shoves here, because I've seen Elton and Paul have a lot of times that they get in. Even though they both generally play pretty tight, they can sometimes get in some pretty loose hands against each other. I'm not sure. But so I think Elton might be thinking if Paul bets 200,000 or so and he shoves, maybe Paul has kings with the king of hearts or aces with the ace of hearts or something, and Elton can get the money in ahead.
Information is 1 piece of information, 2 pieces of information.
But also it's very possible. I think the right play if Paul bets 200 for Elton here is to call. And I would guess that's what he does, but I wouldn't be shocked if he shoves. And it's funny, if you put these hands in... Oh, and Paul bet really big, so he's kind of forcing Elton to shove here. Paul bet 330,000.
It's getting real.
And only has